Hello, friends. It's me again. I just wanted to say some things. I've got a psalm to read, and this video is for primarily Christians, and other people who might want to listen, but that's primarily who this is for. I did want to let you know that in this short story, video, whatever, I am going to be talking about sexual assault, using words that are specific about types of sexual assault. So I just want to let you know that in case that's something you don't want to hear about. So I'm going to start. We're going to read Psalm 9. And so this is from the New International Version. And it says, "For the director of music, to the tune of The Death of the Son, a psalm of David. I will give thanks to you, Lord, with all my heart. I will tell of all your wonderful deeds. I will be glad and rejoice in you. I will sing the praises of your name, O Most High. My enemies turn back. They stumble and perish before you. For you have upheld my right and my cause, sitting enthroned as the righteous judge. You have rebuked the nations and destroyed the wicked. You have blotted out their name forever and ever. Endless ruin has overtaken my enemies. You have uprooted their cities. Even the memory of them has perished. The Lord reigns forever. He has established his throne for judgment. He rules the world in righteousness and judges the peoples with equity. The Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. For those who know your name trust in you. For you, Lord, have never forsaken those who seek you. Sing the praises of the Lord enthroned in Zion. Proclaim among the nations what he has done. For he who avenges blood remembers. He does not ignore the cries of the afflicted. Lord, see how my enemies persecute me. Have mercy and lift me up from the gates of death, that I may declare your praises in the gates of daughter Zion, and there rejoice in your salvation. The nations have fallen into the pit that they have dug. Their feet are caught in the net they have hidden. The Lord is known by his acts of justice. The wicked are ensnared by the work of their hands. The wicked go down to the realm of the dead, all the nations that forget God. But God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. Arise, Lord, do not let mortals triumph. Let the nations be judged in your presence. Strike them with terror, Lord. Let the nations know they are only mortal." So, lots of things have been happening recently. Lots of political things in the United States that have effects on, obviously, people in the United States as well as around the world. There's been a lot said about many of the executive orders that have come out, including some around funding for social programs in the U.S. like Medicaid, SNAP, WIC, those sorts of things, and stuff's happening with that. And I think part of the reason that stuff is happening, that either more clarity is being given or things are being challenged, is one, people in positions of authority are responding, but I think too that people are saying something. People are calling Congress people and saying, "Hey, this is affecting me. Please do something about it." I've noticed that there are some of them that aren't generating the same sort of robust response. So some of the executive orders that have been about, say, foreign aid has not had the same sort of response. And what I'm going to talk about today is sort of the fact that we're not really seeing a response about a lot of the executive orders about LGBT people, trans people in specific. So I think part of that is because while many Christians in general have a connection with people who are being affected with Medicaid, many Christians have kids who are on Medicaid or on Medicaid themselves or benefit from SNAP or WIC. Many people do not know or do not have family, are not themselves being affected by the executive orders around LGBT people. Okay, so as an example, trans people at most make up about 1% of the population in the United States and other places. So obviously, having grown up in the Assemblies of God, having grown up in evangelical spaces, one of the questions is, well, why should we care? Or maybe better yet, well, I do care, but I feel I'm not sure that I can say something. So I'm going to say something and say that we do, in fact, need to care. And I think primarily because it's an issue of looking like God, looking like Jesus. One of my favorite books that I read when I was in college, you may hate it, I don't care, was The Ragamuffin Gospel by Brennan Manning. I remember it being incredibly effective in helping me shift how I thought about the love of God. Instead of my faith being a bunch of check boxes that I had to sort of fulfill in order to earn God's love or God's care, it really helped me begin to shift to understand that God's graciousness and God's love is what generates my response of love to God. I don't have to generate love or obedience for him to love me. So there's a section early in the book, and I'm going to read that. Brennan Manning writes, and in my version, it's from page 26 and goes on to 27. It says, "The gospel of grace nullifies our adulation of televangelists, charismatic superstars, and local church heroes. It obliterates the two-class citizenship theory operative in many American churches. For grace proclaims the awesome truth that all is gift. All that is good is ours not by right, but by the sheer bounty of a gracious God. While there is much we may have earned, our degree and our salary, our home and garden, a Miller Lite, and a good night's sleep, all this is possible only because we have been given so much. Life itself, eyes to see and hands to touch, a mind to shape ideas, and a heart to beat with love. We have been given God in our souls and Christ in our flesh. We have the power to believe where others deny, to hope where others despair, to love where others hurt. This and so much more is sheer gift. It is not reward for our faithfulness, our generous disposition, or our heroic life of prayer. Even our fidelity is a gift. If we but turn to God, said St. Augustine, that itself is a gift of God. My deepest awareness of myself is that I am deeply loved by Jesus Christ, and I have done nothing to earn it or deserve it." So how does this apply to why should Christians care? What's affecting trans people, especially for Christians who vehemently disagree? Here's the thing. I think it's still part of the heart of God that, as we saw in Psalm 9, that those who are oppressed, meaning those whose existence is made difficult, hard by those in power, it is very much the heart of God to see that and to stand with them, to love them, and in an active way, hopefully bring justice for them. And I think that Christians, when we see something that is intended to harm, or maybe not intended to harm, but is harming people, even if we disagree with them, it's part of our gracious response to the grace that we've been given to say something. So let's talk about that. So some things we know about trans people. Specifically, this is from the UCLA School of Law Williams Institute. So just some key findings about victimization, crime, the things that happens to trans people. So trans people over the age of 16, one study found that they are victimized over 4 times more than others. In 2017, 2018, trans people experienced 86.2 victimizations per 1,000 people, compared to 21.7 victimizations per 1,000 people for people who are not trans. Trans women and men had higher rates of violent victimization, 86.1 and 107.5 per 1,000 people, than other women and men. 1 in 4 trans women who were victimized thought the incident was a hate crime, compared to less than 1 in 10 cis women. And there's lots of other things. Also, about half of all violent victimizations were not reported to police. And trans people were as likely as cis people to report violence to police. Okay, so that's some general things, right? This is a group of people who make a very small portion of population and are affected significantly more by both interpersonal violence as well as property violence. One of the executive orders specifically that went out this last week made changes from the last administration on how the Prison Rape Elimination Act is implemented in prisons. This act has been around for a long time and was meant to address issues of sexual violence in prisons. They recognize that people who are incarcerated often face higher incidence, higher risk of being raped, sexually assaulted. And so this was an act that was created to hopefully reduce that. And specifically, one of the things that affects trans people in prisons, I'll read from the section about V coding, and this will include some specific descriptions of the kind of sexual violence that people experience. So a 2018 report from the Indiana Maurer University School of Law, along with a subsequent report in the UCLA Journal of Gender and Law, found that it was common for trans women placed in men's prisons to be assigned to cells with aggressive cisgender male cellmates as both a reward and a means of placation for said cellmates, so as to maintain social control and to, as one inmate described it, keep the violence rate down. Trans women used in this manner are often raped daily. This process is known as V coding and has been described as so common that it is effectively, quote, a central part of a trans woman's sentence. The report also found it common for correctional officers to publicly strip search trans women inmates, before putting their bodies on display for not only the other correctional officers, but for the other prisoners. Trans women in this situation are sometimes made to dance, present, or masturbate at the correctional officer's discretion. The prisoners serving as customers for these women are informally referred to as husbands. A 2021 California study found that 69% of trans women prisoners reported being made to perform sexual acts they would have rather not. 58.5% reported being violently sexually assaulted, and 88% overall reported being made to take part in a marriage-like relationship. Trans women who physically resist the rape are often criminally charged with assault and placed in solitary confinement, the assault charge then being used to extend their prison stay and deny their parole. So again, just some specific examples. And some of the most recent executive orders essentially make this practice much more likely to occur. So I would remind us, God sees. God sees. Again, Psalm 9 says in verse 9, the Lord is a refuge for the oppressed, a stronghold in times of trouble. In verse 16, the Lord is known by his acts of justice. Verses 18, God will never forget the needy. The hope of the afflicted will never perish. God sees. He sees the wickedness that is done and cares about all people. So I'd encourage you, if you're a Christian, regardless of your views about gender, sexuality, it's right to care about what happens to people. It's right to care when laws or executive orders significantly negatively impact people's lives, put them at risk of harm. It's right. It's right to care about that, because God cares about that. To my trans friends, if you watch this, I love you. I care about you. I'm here for you. If you want to talk, I'm here. Just a reminder, we can do something, and sometimes that something is making a lot of noise, saying this matters to us. Thanks for listening. Love to see your comments below, or responses, or whatever. Bye.